Howdy, guys, and welcome to Cliff Notes, and welcome to a recap of Survivor Season 43, Episode 2. Last week was such a great intro to another season of Survivor. If you recall, we lost our first tribe mate. We lost Mariah from the Yellow Tribe, which is Baka. Still trying to remember the tribe names. Yellow Tribe, Baka. We lost Mariah from that tribe. Now, it was unanimous vote against her. She cast one vote, but other than that, it was unanimous vote against her. So perhaps this tribe is still unified, even though they had to go to tribal council. We'll see. We'll find out as we go forward. Remember also, Gabler is on this tribe, the oldest guy in the island this season. Gabler had his idol, which he did not use. It's good for one more tribal council, and there's a little discussion about that. We'll talk about it just a little bit later. But Gabler still has his idol, which puts him in a pretty good spot. And it seems like he has a pretty good alliance with Owen and Ellie. So of the 5 tribe mates left, this group of 3 puts him in a decent position. We'll see if that comes into play tonight or not. Now, let's talk about the actual episode itself. They pack so much content into one of these episodes, so let's just get right into it. We see Baka returning from the tribal council. Gabler, it's day 3, and finally we've got someone talking about food. I guarantee I'd be out there talking about food. Gabler's talking about food, saying, I'm so hungry, we're going to have to go find some worms or something, because we got to be getting some food into our bellies. They weren't messing around. There's no rice or anything up until this point, and they're starting to feel the effects. So Gabler's talking about that. And if it's not miserable enough to be hungry, we then see it pouring down rain on this poor tribe. Not much of a shelter to speak of. Hungry and cold. Looks pretty miserable. Now, I felt a little bit cheated because we did not get to see the red tribe, Vesey. Did not get to see how they were responding to the rainstorms. I don't think it was just over the Baka tribe. Remember last week, the red tribe, Vesey, Cody was busy building his palm frond hat and all of that, but they couldn't build a shelter if their life depended on it. It seemed like maybe it could at some points. But we did not get to see how they did with the thunderstorm and the rainstorms tonight and everything. I wish we'd seen that, but that's all right. So they've got pouring down rain, just looking absolutely miserable for them. And funniest thing, next morning after spending a night like that, they're immediately saying, yeah, I think at this point we're going to go ahead and work on this shelter. They've got brand new motivation. I gotta say, I don't like the cold. I get my hangry moments as well, but even before food, I don't like the cold. I would have the most premium shelter you could ever imagine. You would see me working away to get that thing put in place, just so you wouldn't have rain events like we had in the episode. But yeah, now they got some motivation, so we do see them building the shelter a little bit better than before. But while they're doing that, we see Gabler still having issues. He talked about food, and there's a reason for it. He's really a little gassed, not doing so well. He talks about the fact that he keeps having to take breaks because he just doesn't have the energy to keep going. And there's nothing that happens in Survivor that someone doesn't notice. And in this point in time, we see Owen, who is part of this little group with Gabler, but we see Owen noticing that Gabler is just not really maybe putting in the same effort as everyone else. And he's starting to worry. He's saying, look, I like him. I want to work with him. But if he's not feeling well, if he's not able to pull his own weight, he may not be an asset to the tribe. And it may be something that we have to reconsider going forward. So Gabler, he's doing well with the immunity idol, not so well in terms of doing the work and being able to thrive out in this environment. We'll see how that pans out. Meanwhile, over in the red tribe, the Vesey tribe, excuse me, we got Dwight and Jesse looking for an advantage. These two guys have gotten pretty tight. And as tight as they are looking for an advantage, I didn't find one, but they're looking for one. As tight as these two guys are, they're also recognizing that 2 of the girls, Justine and Noelle, have also become close. So you've got Dwight and Jesse, you've got Justine and Noelle, and you have Cody and Nneka as well. You've got 3 groups of 2 people each who feel tightest with one another, which is a very interesting dynamic, because that means any 2 people could potentially align with any other 2 people and control the game. But which 2 are going to combine with which 2? That's where it's all thrown up in the air, and I think they're recognizing that. But Dwight and Geo are feeling. Dwight and Jesse are feeling like they could probably they have enough relationships with either duo, the other two duos, that they could probably stay safe and control the game. Which doesn't mean that they don't each have their preferences that we're going to talk about. So you've got three groups of two people each, but on top of that, you also have Jesse and Cody and NECA, who kind of already started working together a little bit. So you've got Jesse working with Cody and NECA, but Jesse also working with Dwight. Where are his true loyalties going to lie? Well, we may see tonight. We may see a little bit further down the road. But it also means that of everyone in that tribe, Dwight maybe is the one that's a little bit more isolated from everyone else. Yeah, he's got his connection with Jesse, but if Jesse has some connections elsewhere, what does that say for Dwight? And remember that Dwight does not have a vote at his next tribal council because he took the risk when he went over to the island. He lost it, and so he doesn't even have a vote going forward. Dwight's in a very vulnerable position in this tribe right now until he gets that vote back and until he develops some better relationships, perhaps. But Dwight maybe not noticing that quite so much because he's talking about how well he and Jesse are working together and that he really feels like he can trust Jesse completely. Well, the game of Survivor is a lot like Big Brother. You probably can't ever trust anyone completely. And if you do, you may pay the price. Eventually, we hear some backstories from Dwight and from Jesse as well, Geo and others. Dwight's is very interesting. Turns out Dwight was a kid journalist, kid interviewer. He talked to all these different politicians as a kid. Really pretty cool. It's a pretty neat way to be a kid. But he thinks that's going to lead to a strong social game. That, yeah, maybe he doesn't have the connections that we're seeing with some of the other groups, but he's feeling like he's decently okay with everyone else on the tribe. The only person he doesn't really feel that close to, that connected to just yet is Cody. He says, I just don't have a read on him. I really haven't talked game with Cody, so that worries me a little bit. Everyone else I'm feeling pretty comfortable with. So if he feels like he's got some connection, people aren't going to go out of their way to vote him out of the tribe, at least not yet. So with that in mind, we probably know Dwight's likely target, right? If it ever came down to it. Sounds like Cody is probably who Dwight would be shooting for if he had the opportunity. So that's Dwight's story. Jesse, on the other hand, has a slightly different situation on the tribe. Jesse's okay with Cody. He says, yeah, we get along all right. His issue is with Justine. He says, Justine and I, we just don't talk that much. Remember as well, Justine is a saleswoman. I think pharmaceutical sales, could be wrong, but she's a saleswoman. And Cody, who also is a salesman who hadn't told anyone, Cody said, you can't ever trust the salespeople on this game. They'll lie to your face, everything else. Jesse is pointed out at one point to Dwight, says, look, she told me she can lie, that she's great at lying. I don't trust salespeople. So Cody definitely got in Jesse's head a little bit. He said, my person I just don't really get along with is Justine. So yes, Dwight and Jesse are tight, but they may be looking different directions if they have to. So we'll see how that plays out as we continue on with this game. But Jesse, talking to the cameras at one point, says, look, Dwight and I are tight. I don't want that to change. They talk all about being island wives and things like that. He says, I don't want that to change, but the reality is I have a vote. Dwight doesn't have a vote. Therefore, I'm kind of the one calling the shots if it comes right down to it. Yeah, you kind of are, Jesse. So Jesse's figuring that he's in control, that he's in the driver's seat. He's going to do what he needs to do if it comes down to that. We get a little montage of Cody. Cody's going to be fun to watch in this season, I think. He just is living the good life. He talks at one point that a lot of it has to do with losing a high school childhood friend of his to cancer. And so he just realized that you got to live every moment for the moment. He's got a tattoo that says living, and he very much lives by that. So, yeah, Cody's going to be fun. I'm really looking for every time Cody shows up on the screen, I'm kind of laughing about it because he's just a lot of fun to watch. So there you go with the Red Tribe, the Vesey Tribe. See, I'm learning if we go along. Meanwhile, over at the Coco Tribe, who should be brown, but they're not, the Blue Tribe, they're doing yoga. So a completely different vibe over at this tribe. Very much still in the kumbaya phase. we'll see if that changes. It can't last forever, but at least for right now, at least on the surface, they're just hanging out doing yoga, not a care in the world, right? Well, that's on the surface. Internally, we've got the group split enough. It's day 3. You're going to have that happen. Yeah, that happen as soon as people get on the island, I think, but it's becoming more pronounced now. We've got Carla pointing out that the 3 girls in this tribe really are aligned tightly. They've brought in James as well. So they've got a group of 4 out of the 6 on this particular tribe. And they're feeling like the 4 of them leaves just Gio and Ryan alone. So they feel like they're very much in power. But at the same time, Gio and Ryan are thinking they're in alliance with Carla. Carla's pointing this out. She's saying, I'm aligned with the 2 girls, but Gio and Ryan, these 2 guys, they think they're in an alliance with me as well. It doesn't seem like she's nearly as much connected with the 2 guys as she is with the 2 women. So Ryan and Gio better watch out if it comes down to that. It does protect Carla. She's got 2 different groups that are watching out for. As long as somewhere down the road they don't start comparing notes, and then it can create some issues of its own. But she is worried. One of the reasons that she doesn't want to align any closer to Gio and Ryan is because she recognizes that these guys are so close to one another, and she very obviously would be the third wheel if it ever came down to it. And right after that, we see just how tight these 2 are. We see Gio and Ryan out looking for food. Gio finds an almond tree. I never knew exactly how almonds were harvested. I guess I pictured little almond bushes that little elves come along and pick the almonds or something. No, it's not it. It's a tree. The almonds are seeds, a big old shell thing. Gio apparently found them, picked them as a child growing up in Peru. So he's showing Ryan how to do that, and Ryan's suitably impressed, as I am as well. But Gio also tells the story about growing up in Peru, eventually coming out as gay, that his family wasn't really receptive to it, led to some homelessness, some mental health issues, things like that. I always like Survivor. The first episode, I can't even remember names. There's no telling who's who, really. But as you get into it, especially this episode, we see a lot of stories from the different castmates. You start seeing them get a little bit more humanized as we hear the stories behind them. And I love this story. You just see Gio and Ryan really getting tight with each other and feeling very comfortable with each other. And you hear some background stories, which is pretty cool. But they find some almonds. Eventually, they find some papayas. So yeah, it's not rice, but seems like the this tribe is going to eat better than some of the other ones. You can only eat so many coconuts, right? So yeah, we've got Gio and Ryan finding almonds and papayas and everything else. Now, I don't know if they shared it with the rest of the tribe. I hope so. But we see that. Meanwhile, we get back to the Vessi, the red tribe. And this is Cody explaining why he thrived on life. I kind of skipped ahead. So let's just go ahead and go over to the yellow tribe. The Baka tribe. Yeah, the Baka tribe, yellow tribe. Owen carrying water. Owen just kind of a workhorse. It looks like he's the one that's been tasked with being the house mom that gets everything taken care of. So Owen's carrying water. While he's doing that, we've got Janine and Ellie looking for an idol while they're discussing strategy, how they need to go forward. Remember, these 2 are very tight with each other. And so they're sharing that they're looking for the idol. They're talking about what to do. Ellie looks right at the tree, looking all around the base, doesn't realize that just a foot up in the crook of the tree, there's an advantage sitting there waiting for her. Cameraman made sure to point it out. But Ellie missed it. I got to think, and I, having not played the game myself, I got to think when if I'm out looking for immunity idol and suddenly the cameraman seems to zoom in on any particular little area, that's where I'm looking. I think that would be a nice little hint, but they're probably more subtle than that. But she misses the advantage, so we'll see if that comes into play later. But there is then a discussion about what maybe they need to do. There's only 2 of them, and there's 6 or 5 in this tribe at this point in time. It's just the two ladies that are left because we lost Mariah. So Ellie and Janine are saying, what do we do about this? How can we bring in a third person so we control this tribe going forward? And it really is coming down to either Owen or Sammy as the third person that they want to bring in. They don't want to bring in Gabler for some reason. One of the other 2 guys, they'd like to get tight, bring him in, get tight, and create an alliance of 3. Now, remember how Kara didn't want to get with the 2 guys because she was worried they were so tight with each other. I wonder if Sammy or Owen would feel the same way if they got an offer to join up with these two ladies. It may be a tougher sell than they think, but they're wondering if the guys on this tribe are even playing the game yet because they haven't really seen any discussion or anything. If you haven't seen it happening, it probably just means that you're not paying enough attention because everyone's got to be playing the game at this point, right? Yeah, pretty much. All right. Meanwhile, sure enough, the three guys are all back at camp. I think this is pretty much Sammy who's leading the way, saying, look, we got to work with each other. We know the two of them are tight with each other. As long as the three of us stick together, we're safe. They're saying, don't let those two girls pull any of us away. We need to stick together and we'll be good if that's the case. And Sammy's saying he'd be perfectly happy telling the cameras, he'd be perfectly happy working with these two guys. So with all the background going on, people starting to do more and more conspiring and alliances and everything else, it's time for not the reward challenge, for the immunity challenge. Although we do find out there's a reward attached as well, but just one competition this episode. And it's a pretty involved one. I love these competitions on Survivor. This particular competition, each team starts off out in the ocean. They have to dive off a platform, swim to a giant cage, crawl over the cage down into the middle of the water where there's a snake, not just a real snake. Now, this is a big, I couldn't tell, it's made out of canvas or a burlap or something, but a big old long snake. At one point, Jeff points out that weighs 400 pounds. So a big snake, a very heavy snake. They have to work as a team to get that snake pulled up over the top of the cage and back down into the water. And it's probably, I want to say 12 feet or so, probably 10, 12 feet, something is the height of this cage. They've got to get it up and over 400 pounds. It's a tough one, but they have to get it up over the cage. Once they do that, drag it to shore, drag it through an obstacle or two, eventually untie the top of the snake where there's some hidden pockets, remove a lot of discs that have numbers on them, use those numbers to unscramble the code to a lock. Once you unscramble the lock, it contains puzzle pieces. Then two people from each tribe take those puzzle pieces, solve a circular 3D puzzle like we see in so many episodes, and the first two tribes are safe. Yeah, once again, only one tribe's going to immunity council, so our tribal council. So the first two are safe. And as we find out, it's a reward challenge also. The first place team gets a huge swimming, fishing. I guess they care more about the fishing than swimming, but it's got fins and masks and spears and all that. First tribe to finish gets a big kit. Second tribe gets a much smaller kit, but still both of them are going to be able to fish. Not rely on coconuts going forward, at least not quite as much. So yeah, certainly a lot worth fighting for. And just as before, the losing tribe loses their flint. As much as it rained and everything else, you want fire. You want fire on this island. So there's a setup. We get set up. Tribes all jump in the water, take off. The blue team yet again takes an early lead, getting to the cage, getting over the top. The red team very much bringing up the rear, not quite making it work this evening. And again, those 400-pound snakes. Even with Jonathan and some of the people from past seasons, you can just be a brute with strength. It still takes teamwork to get this thing up and over this cage. We do see on the blue team, Ryan this guy's a hoss. He is just using pure strength to lift that thing up and over, and it's working, but it's not an easy process. And you actually see right next to him, the yellow team, they're using more of a group effort. Instead of just one person trying to muscle this thing through, it looks like you've got half the people on one side, half on the other. They're trying to lift in unison, and it actually works a little bit better. So the yellow team actually gets the snake free of the cage first before the blue team. And once again, the red team is well behind, bringing up the rear. In fact, NECA from the red team is looking absolutely gassed. She's having a hard time even making it to shore. Once she gets there, she's basically just standing there while everyone else drags the snake up onto the shore and everything else. Not a good sign. Even worse is the fact that it's been noticed by the other tribe mates, because they're telling NECA, hey, you got to help us. You got to help us. And once other people start noticing, that's a major danger sign. So not looking good for NECA right now. We do eventually get the yellow tribe first to the puzzle to start solving it. The red tribe still way behind. There's always comebacks. Well, not always comebacks. Sometimes there's comebacks. So we'll see what happens. But here's kind of it's bad when your tribe mates notice that maybe you're not quite pulling your weight. It maybe is just as bad when Jeff Probst notices it and he starts calling it, not just NECA. He's calling out, it seems like he's too political just to call out one person, but he's calling out the entire Red Vesey tribe saying, guys, you can't stop. This is just stop when you get home. And I'm not talking about camp. I'm talking about when you get back home in the States. So Jeff is even noticing that maybe they've slowed up a little bit. And I don't know if they've given up or they're just absolutely exhausted, but he's calling them out as well. Eventually, they do get to the point of solving the puzzle, but they're behind. It's not going to be easy to do it. But meanwhile, Blue and Yellow Tribe started off a little earlier, but it's really turned into a neck and neck race within a puzzle piece or two of each other. And the winner of the immunity and reward challenge this week is Yellow. Yeah, the Yellow Tribe has won. They went to tribal council last week. They're not going to repeat the process, which is good because that means you're not going to have 2 tribes of 6 and 1 team of 4. I think that always gums things up a little bit. Instead, you're going to have 2 teams of 5, 1 tribe still of 6. So Yellow has won, and second place right behind them is Blue team, the Coco team. So they're the team that's going to stay at 6. You know, it's easy when you don't go to tribal council. You can work on all kinds of alliances and everything else, but you really haven't had anyone test their loyalty yet. So until that happens, I almost feel like someone like the Blue Tribe is a little bit of a standstill. Until that first tribal, you just don't really know where you stand, or you don't really know who you can trust. So not saying it's not good to avoid tribal council. It always is. But I don't think they've got the same development of their tribe that these other 2 tribes are going to have because of that. We'll see. I mean, truthfully, I wouldn't be complaining. I'd be very happy if I was on the Blue team. But as a result, because Blue Tribe, Yellow Tribe both won, Dwight and Nellie were the 2 trying to solve the puzzle. They just couldn't catch up. Red Tribe's going to tribal council. I really think NECA could be in trouble just because she got called out by her other tribe mates is not contributing to what needs to be done. And here's the thing. When you're in the old days, when they had 2 tribes of Survivor, 9 or 10 people per tribe, you could kind of go under the radar a little bit. One person that maybe doesn't do quite as well as someone else, not the end of the world. It's so much more about relationships. When there's only 6 of you, only 5 competing this time because one person had to sit out. If you aren't pulling your weight, it's so much bigger of an issue. And I think that's what NECA's getting caught up in right now. She definitely has a big target on her back. But remember, this is a tribe that has 3 different duos: Justine and Noelle, Cody and NECA, and Gio and Dwight. So how are these 3 duos going to figure out who's going home at this point in time? Now, NECA is the obvious pick, and we quickly hear Justine and Noelle both saying, yeah, well, we got to get rid of NECA. So much for girl power and all that. Not on this tribe. They're immediately targeting NECA. But Cody, who feels tightest with NECA, he said, yeah, we're going to shut that down. He's telling the cameras, we got to figure out some way to make that not happen. So NECA certainly has a champion that's going to try to help her survive in this tribe. She's feeling decently comfortable. She knows that the other 2 girls are probably targeting her, but she's really hoping that her tightness with Cody, and also that she feels like she's got this connection with Jesse. Remember, Jesse, Cody, and NECA had kind of formed formed a group of 3 as well. She's hoping her relationship with Cody and Jesse carries her through because she knows there's a target on her at this point in time. All right, we break away from the Vesey tribe for a little bit to see Gabler going fishing on the Yellow Tribe. He takes that spear out there. I thought one of 3 things was going to happen. I thought either Gabler was going to immediately lose the spear and have the whole tribe mad at him. I thought he was going to break the elastic band that's used to launch the spear because he's wrapping it all around his arms, trying to figure out how to make this work. Or I thought he maybe was going to just shoot himself in the thigh or stomach or something else and have to medically tap. He said he'd had experience with a spear, but I guess this Hawaiian sling is what they're calling it. A little bit different piece of equipment. He didn't look like he's really comfortable with it. And I did notice they didn't show him coming back with any fish either. So it may be a learning process for Gabler and everyone else before they start feasting on a few fish. But at least he didn't lose a spear that we know of. But that was a little fun to watch. Everyone else wondering, though, while Gabler's out fishing, talking about his immunity idol. a little bit. Remember, he risked his vote last week, and it paid off for him because he won an immunity idol, but it's only good for 2 tribal councils. And I wondered about it last week. Does that 2 tribal councils? So, in other words, as soon as this episode's over, he loses his power, or is it 2 tribal councils that Gabler is involved with? I wasn't sure last week, and it turns out it's actually an issue because his castmates, his tribe mates don't know either, and are really wondering how that would affect gameplay. So while he's out there fishing and hanging out on the beach and everything else, Janine is actually looking through his bag to read the clue. And at one point he comes up, you think she maybe is going to get discovered. She's all right. She finds a clue, and it says through his next 2 tribal councils. So until this tribe goes back to tribal again, he's got one more week, one more tribal council of protection. So he's got a little more protection than they originally had thought. So they're feeling pretty comfortable. They're glad that they read the clue. They found it and read the clue. You know, we saw a little teaser for next week, and there may be some repercussions to going through his bag and finding that. We'll see next week. All right. Meanwhile, going back to the red team, the Vesey team. Yeah, it's a Vesey team, right? Yeah. Going back to the red team, tribal council tonight, and lots of planning going on as you would expect. Justine is trying to get Jesse on board with her and Noelle. The 2 girls are trying to get someone on board to vote out Nneka as well. Now, Dwight's on board. Dwight is perfectly happy sending out Nneka. The problem is Dwight doesn't have a vote to cast, so he's kind of a non-factor in this particular tribal council. So Noelle and Justine trying to get Jesse on board as well. Justine is also thinking ahead a little bit. She's saying, look, if we get Jesse and you, Noelle, if we've got 3 of us voting, 2 of us can vote for Nneka, send her out. If she plays that shot in the dark, she wins immunity, just 1 in 6 chance. Well, then the other person can vote for Cody, and we'll at least send out Cody, go to a tie, whatever. Hopefully we can split votes, send him out the door. So they're thinking this thing through. It's an interesting proposition. So that's the plan. Go for Nneka, get her out the door. But of course, a little bit on down the beach, Cody is also working and doing some conspiring of his own. He's telling Jesse a little bit later that it really should be a choice between these 2 girls that are so tight to each other. Remember, he's tight with Nneka. He doesn't want her going anywhere. So he's saying the 2 girls, they're the ones that are tight. They're the ones that we got to watch out for. So who do you want to send out the door, Justine or Noelle? And Jesse's like, I don't care. I mean, either one of them, I don't really care. But remember that Jesse had already identified Justine as his target. So I think that's where he would prefer to go, but he's being very non-committal in front of Cody until he figures out just what's going on. But it does seem like Jesse is on board to go after the ladies, go after Justine, as opposed to trying to boot Nneka out the door, which is no surprise because they had already kind of aligned a little bit earlier last week. But at the same time, here's Jesse's biggest concern. He's trying to create relationships with everyone on this tribe. He feels tightest with Dwight, but he knows that Dwight is not close to Justine, or is not close to Cody, and would much prefer to stick with Justine instead. So Jesse's realizing that this could create a little friction between the 2 of them. So he actually is bringing Dwight in and saying, look, I know you don't have a vote, but in a way you do, because you and I want us to work together. I want you to understand me. I think he called it pineapple time, where he and his wife, no lies, no secrets. They just say everything and all that. So he's doing that with Dwight, saying, I want to go for Justine. And Dwight saying, well, I kind of want to go for Cody. So it's a little bit of dissension in the ranks right there. But I think the whole thing is pretty much solved, because while they're talking, or just a little bit later, Justine comes up and asks Jesse something, are we good? And Jesse, yeah. And she says, I'm just worried. Can I trust you, Jesse? And are you going to turn around and flip on me? Can I really trust you? And at that point, she leaves, and Jesse's saying, look, the fact that she's saying that she's basically not sure she can trust me, that she doesn't really trust me, he says, that makes me think even more Justine needs to go home this week. Sometimes when you get a little too paranoid about your position in the tribe in terms of targeting and all that, if you start asking too many questions and get a little too I don't know, a little too desperate, sometimes it shows up and sometimes it backfires on you. I think that happened in this case with Justine. So eventually we've got Jesse telling Nneka and Cody kind of what just happened. She said, look, that Justine is targeting you, NECA. She's afraid that she's going to be the target. Otherwise, I think she's heard that maybe she could be the target. So instead, she wants to send you out the off the island, NECA. So you just need to be aware. And so the three of them have decided, well, let's just vote out Justine. In fact, at one point, I think it's Cody who says, look, or maybe it's Jesse, I can't remember. Says, look, the real only question I got is, do you spell Justine with an E or not? So they seem very settled to send Justine out the door. Seems like a very straightforward tribal council, right? Well, maybe not so much, because there's always a little twist. There's always a little wrinkle that interferes with these easy tribal councils. No difference tonight, because we've got Cody, who is still playing the game. Even though they've settled on tribal council votes, he's still playing the game. He's out looking around for an advantage. And lo and behold, he finds an advantage, but not just any one of these advantages. Just like the last two seasons, it's a danger advantage or beware advantage. There's something good about it, but there's also something not so good. And Cody, someone's got a tattoo on their backside that says living, isn't the one that's going to be cautious in situations like that. And that's not Cody. Cody says, I'm going for it. Of course I'm going to go for it. So he opens up the advantage and discovered on the positive side, he has an immunity idol. Yeah, you always wanted an immunity idol, right? Except at least he didn't have to do goofy quotes back at tribal council. It's actually a little bit worse, because the downside to this immunity idol is that it only works if he can go back to the tribe and convince each of his 5 tribe mates to give him a specialized bead that each of them has on their personal bag that they were given, I guess, when they entered the game. If he can get each of them to give him that special bead, take them all with him to tribal council, then he gets immunity idol to use as he pleases. If he doesn't, not only does he not get immunity, but even worse, he doesn't get to vote tonight. He loses his vote, which, remember I talked about when you got big groups of 9 or 10 people on a tribe, you can kind of hide sometimes. Well, from a voting standpoint, it's even a bigger issue. 9 or 10 people, 1 vote. Does it really matter? Sometimes, but not nearly as much as when there's only 5 people voting, and now you've potentially lost your vote. Cody is quickly realizing something absolutely horrible to his game, that if he doesn't get all 5 of these beads, he doesn't get immunity, but he also doesn't get to vote, which means instead of a 3-2 vote to send out Justine, it could come down to a 2-2 vote between Justine and NECA, and then they could all go to rocks. And if that happens, suddenly Cody, just like everyone else, may be going home this evening. So Cody's thinking maybe he shouldn't open that advantage up. The hard part, you find it right after tribal council. Well, you got a couple of days to try to convince the other people to give you the beads and all of that. This is right before tribal council. He does not have a lot of time to make this thing work. So he is smart. Cody's a smart player, except maybe when you open up some of these advantages and such. But for the most part, he seemed to be a pretty smart player. And he's immediately gone and told Jesse. And then eventually he tells NECA as well. Says, look, guys, I kind of screwed up. If we're going to vote Justine out, I got to have my vote. So you're going to have to help me get these beads from the other ones. And of course, both of them say, we'll give you our beads, but you got to get from other folks as well. He works on them. He eventually gets the beads from Dwight and from who am I missing? I can't remember. He gets them from Justine as well. But Noelle is saying, I've got these on my wrist. I kind of like them already. I don't really want to give them up. So does he get them? Does he not get them? Well, we don't know until we get to tribal council. Well, we don't even know then, but we'll find out eventually whether he gets them or not. So on to tribal council, Justine is pointing out that this 3 groups of 2 exist. We've seen as viewers. She's recognizing it as well. Jeff is asking, I think, Dwight or Jesse, saying, "Is this true? I mean, are y'all a group of 2?" And they're looking at each other playing dumb. So I don't know. I didn't think we were, but I don't know. So they're kind of disavowing their bonds with each other. But probes, Jeff's talking to them a little bit. He's talking about the fact at one point, Dwight says, look, maybe we kind of are, but I don't even have a vote this week. So it doesn't really matter, the 2 of us, whatever. And Jeff says, well, how do they all know you don't have a vote? No, I told them. I told them all when I got back. Remember last week, I pointed out that I kind of could see why Gabler would tell everyone that he had immunity idol, protects him, it makes him a little more powerful. People will leave him alone. I get that. Going back and telling people that you no longer have a vote just seems like you're showing everyone a weakness in your hand that you may not want to do. Well, sure enough, Jeff's calling him out a little bit and saying, information's golden in here. And so, yeah, I kind of agree that he probably told people a little too much, but at this point, the damage is done. So they do talk about that a little bit. And then it's time to vote. And we still don't know whether Cody's going to be voting or not. So the vote tally is very interesting. We get everyone up to vote. Of course, we don't see him in the voting booth. Jeff pulls the votes out. We get one vote for Justine, one vote for NECA, one vote for Cody. Yeah, Cody's gotten a vote too. I bet he wasn't expecting that. Another vote for Justine. So at this point in time, 4 votes left. 2 for Justine, 1 for NECA, 1 for Cody. Is she going home? Could there be a tie? Well, we get one more vote. Yes, indeed. Right before Tribal Council, Cody was able, I think NECA seems like she's the one that kind of pushed Noelle, say, hey, give him your beats, give him your beats. So she eventually gave him the beats. Cody has a vote, so he has cast a vote as well to send out Justine. Yeah, no huge surprise there. So as a result, Justine has been voted out by a 3-1 vote. I remember they had talked about Noelle and Justine at one point about splitting the votes between NECA and Cody, just in case one of them used the shot in the dark. Well, that's what they did. So Cody had a vote cast against him. It wouldn't have mattered as it turns out, even if he hadn't had the beads. They still should have had the votes to get out Justine, but he found them. So now he's got immunity idol. Now NECA and Jesse know that he has immunity idol. Will that pull them closer together? Probably so. I would expect so. They're going to rely on him a little bit more. They know he has power, which is going to make them want to stick with Cody just that much more going forward. So Justine is gone. Noelle is not happy. She realizes that she didn't have Jesse's vote the way she thought she did. She's now, I'm sure she's feeling very much all alone on an island. NECA's not going to support her, right? I mean, she turned on NECA. She's lost Jesse, so she's got to be feeling like she's the next big target on this tribe. So yeah, Noelle's not real happy. You know who else isn't happy? Dwight's not real happy. At the very end, we see Dwight telling Jesse, saying, you did it. And Jesse's just kind of on, yeah. And he says, Dwight says, we'll talk later. So remember, Dwight didn't want Justine going home. He wanted Cody going home. Well, Jesse made his own decision. Dwight's not happy about it. Is it going to impact their relationship going forward? We're going to find out next week. I have a feeling we'll see just how. Do they stay tight? I hope so. I mean, if you're Dwight, you got to think as much as I hated it, because I don't have a vote and you do, Jesse, you're kind of the tiebreaker, right? I mean, no matter how close you think you are, he's got to be able to pull his own trigger, call his own shot. So I hope Dwight's not too upset, because it's going to benefit them if they continue to work together. He didn't want to be isolated. The last thing Dwight wants is for him and Noelle to be the two that are isolated on this tribe. So you better do everything you can to say, yeah, whatever. It's water under the bridge, Jesse. No worries. He can make them pay the price a little bit later for it. So there you go. So kind of the theme of this evening, of this episode, they didn't vote out the weakest player, who very arguably was NECA. They didn't vote her out. Instead, they voted out the ones that at least the people with the most control in the game right now seemed to be the one that they felt like they could trust the least, which was Justine. So yeah, they're sticking with someone a little bit weaker to get out someone that they fear a little bit more from a strategy standpoint. As Cody said last week, don't ever trust a salesman. Well, Justine, the saleswoman, is out the door. Another fun episode. I'm looking forward to next week, see what some of the repercussions are of everything that happened. I'm still waiting for Gabler to shoot himself in the thigh with that spear gun as well. We'll see if it happens next week. Guys, y'all have a fantastic rest of the week. I will be back again next week for episode 3. Tell you all about it. Until then, SKD143. Cheers, my friends.